Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire a Moment Mastermind, your Friday morning job search pick-me-up. My name is Shira Lotzar. Delighted to be with you today. I am an association recruiter and I am a career coach. I'm a branding expert. Love to help job seekers to get themselves noticed by recruiters through their resume and compelling LinkedIn profiles and networking and interviewing. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org. We are a community-based nonprofit helping folks, professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. We offer free programs every 2 weeks. Feel free to check us out. So today, let me share our experts with you. We'll start with Michelle Wright. She's actually subbing here for Julian Bois, who most of you know is normally with us. Julian's actually going to be rotating out of his other colleagues, so stay tuned for more people from Justin Bradley. Corliss Jackson, she's a career coach in all things federal government resumes. Welcome, Corliss. Kiki is our video image expert. She's all things social media and video framing. Vern Schellenger, career coach and a expert in networking and relationship building, and last but definitely not least, Jo Weech, who is the queen of government contracting and an HR executive. So for today, just to kind of review our format here, we're going to start as per usual with a 10-minute breakout room. So as of last week, some of you who were here last week might remember we're doing it slightly differently, where we are going to still have you identify your group's top question, as well as share any power lessons with each other. But we want to make sure that, number one, everybody has equal time to share. So when you're in your room, just make sure that somebody's sort of loosely monitoring the clocks. Everybody's got their couple minutes or so. And also make sure to assign a scribe in your room so that person can be taking down the questions so that when we get back into the main room, that person can put all of those questions in the chat box. We'll keep it kind of organized. We actually don't have advanced questions today, but normally we do. And then we're going to do a group discussion. And in our group discussion, I really would request that everybody remain muted when you're in the main room. And the reason for that is because we do have so many experts here today that we want to make sure that we give everybody, all the experts, a chance to share. And so please, if you have comments or questions or anything, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. At 10 o'clock, we're going to do 15 minutes speed networking. In that speed networking, which is different than the first breakout, the second breakout here is where you're going to be sharing your career goals with each other, what you're looking for, the kind of profession, industry you're looking for, sharing any job leads with each other. So that's the purpose of that meeting at the end. We really do ask you to keep in touch with each other. We have a power networking spreadsheet. There's a bit.ly here at the bottom. I'll put that in the chat box a little bit later, as well as the recording from this session. You can find that in the future. Also, it's here, a link on my website. So with that, we're going to go into our breakout rooms right now. So,
hey, Shira.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I just want to ask a clarifying question. What is a power? Can you say again what a power lesson is?
A power lesson is, sure. That's thank you for asking that. A power lesson is any sort of job search tip from yourself, like some tip that you have found has worked for you now or in the past. It could be a technique you use in job search. It could be just a lesson that you've learned, something that's worked for you in resumes, interviewing, networking, or what have you. If you've found that something's worked for you, feel free to share it with others.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give me a sec. Okay, great. So you'll have to see your blue join button here, and you should go ahead and enter into your breakout room. So you'll have 10 minutes. Okay, so guys, let me get you. All right, so Vern, move you into a room. Kiki, move you into a room. Corliss, move you into a room. And Jo. Yeah, we only have 4 rooms today, so there's going to be some overlap. And Joe, you should have a room to go to. And Michelle, move you to a room as well. And Kelly, move you to a room. Hi, Madeline. We're doing breakout rooms here, so I'm going to put you in a room. Kelly, you're actually in room number 5, if you haven't seen that already. Here, I'll move you over to 1. There you go. And for those who are joining us via recording, feel free to fast forward about 7 minutes or so, and we'll come back into the main room. Morning, Janet. We're in our breakout rooms. I'll go ahead and assign you to one.
Thank you.
Yes. Roberto. We're actually still in breakout rooms for another minute or so, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop you in one. Okay.
Oh, I was already in room 30. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope that was a good networking session. Before we get going with our main chat room here, I just want to put a couple things in the chat. And the first thing is, I just want to let you know that on my website, I now have a couple of very recent videos that I've done on some strategies. So the first is called Interviews That Land the Offer. I had presented to the Career Network Ministry earlier this week on interview strategies. And then the second is actually something that I had co-hosted with Kiki, who is one of our experts here, and we had another friend, Allison, and we did a video on basically reframing your video image for Zoom, right? And so I'm going to put this in the chat box here. You can find both of those videos on this page of my website. It's kind of at the bottom. You'll kind of see those links. And the other thing I wanted to mention or put in the chat are the recordings of today's Q&A, as well as the bit.ly for the spreadsheet. And then the final thing before we get started is I did want to acknowledge that we have actually another guest today. He'll be joining us, I think, periodically. His name is Adriel Lubarski. Adriel, if you want to raise your hand there. Adriel actually is a founder of a company called Riveter, and he has free resources for the unemployed. And he also has a lot of expertise in networking and interviewing and so forth. So Adriel, welcome. Okay, so with that, go ahead and for those of you who are the scribe for your chat room, for your breakout room, go ahead and pop your questions here in the chat. And as you do that, Kiki is going to be capturing those. And in the meantime, while you're all doing that, I've actually invited Corliss, one of our experts, to give kind of a tip on federal job search, especially right now, where there's so many openings in the federal government. I think some of you are going to be interested in pursuing that route. So Corliss, you got a couple few minutes here to share with us your big tip. Corliss, you still with us?
She is. I see her. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Corliss.
Okay.
There you
go. Get your technology right. That's my first tip. Yeah, so awesome experience for job seekers right now in the federal government, because there are a lot of positions that are open. And I say that for two reasons. Number one, The government had a continuing resolution, which means that we did not have a budget for the last 4 months or so, 3 months. And in the beginning of this month, maybe the end of last month, the budget was approved. And what that means is that HR folks are still doing their work to look for people to hire, but there really wasn't a lot of hiring happening in the fall. But everything now is moving very quickly. So we have actually have a lot of clients who are interviewing now, multiple positions. The other thing is that this administration is doing a lot of hiring. So there's a lot of new positions that are going to come down the pike. They're coming fast and furiously because the HR folks were very cognizant that this would probably happen and that there'd be some programming that would be ramping up. So there's a lot of new types of positions available. One of the things that you might want to look for if you're in a time crunch, if you will, is to look for jobs that are under the heading of direct hire. And that's just the words direct hire, and I'll type that into the chat box in a moment. But direct hire positions mean that the agency has gotten special authority to hire individuals very quickly. So there's a lot of things that they can circumvent, and they don't have to follow the regular rules and regulations of hiring. They can do some things that are a little bit outside of the box and outside of the norm. And what that means for you is that if you're qualified for the position, they can bring you on board very, very quickly. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to go through the background investigation and you have to go through some of the things that are required, but the process for getting to that point can be very quick. There's also no veterans preference that applies. And so I know sometimes that's a deterrent for some people who don't have that military background. I find that that really isn't an issue when really only 1 out of every 3 people hired are military veterans. So that means it leaves 2 for those who aren't, two positions for those who aren't. But if you do think that that's a challenge for you, or that's been a challenge, and you're getting responses that say, there was a veteran who was qualified and they're going to get the opportunity instead of you, you probably want to look at direct hire positions, because as long as you're qualified, they can hire you for those positions. So that would be my tip for today, Shira.
Thank you, Corliss. Appreciate you very much. All right, so it looks like we've had a flurry of chat. Kiki, would you like to start us out?
I would. Okay. So we actually had a really fantastic, ran out of time asking questions in our own group, in the group I had a chance to be a part of. But like you mentioned, there are so many in the chat. So we're going to try to get through as many as possible. We're going to start with the very first one. What should you do? Okay. This comes from Sonia. What should you do about health concerns in a job that you're applying for, or the job application process? And I'll give you the example that was given to me. It required in-person meetings at a time when obviously there are some concerns about COVID. And so she withdrew herself from that process because she didn't feel like she was safe. Yeah. Sonia, I'm speaking for you. So if I get any of this wrong, speak up, but she didn't feel safe. What should we do in those situations? What's the best way to handle it when, we're very interested in getting the job, but we just feel like it's just not going to be safe in the way that we're supposed to go through that process.
This is a whole new world, right? We career experts have never had to deal with this one before, and it's a moving target. So I can't really exactly say best practice, because there really is none right now. Obviously, it's all personal choice, right? And you have to feel comfortable in what you're doing. Clearly, I'm sure you did this, Sonia, but clearly you would gently state your concerns and say, look, I realize that we all have different levels of, safety precautions and protocols. Mine is that, I'm presuming here, mine is that I stay virtual. Now that said, look, I have seen situations where it's safer, okay, than maybe in other situations where I've seen folks come in, where the employer asked them to come in person, and everybody's mask wearing and there's social distance and there's like less than 10 people in the room. And of course, if you feel comfortable with that, might be something to consider. If you're not, look, it's a brave new world. If you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable, and simply say, I'd be delighted to interview via Zoom, but I just can't make it in person. And that is what it is. And if it may just not be the right opportunity for you, because if they're asking you to come in the interview, chances are they're going to be wanting you to be coming in person on a day-to-day basis. And so that just really, unfortunately, may not be the best thing. So that's what I have to say about that. So we'll move on to the next question, then maybe we'll get some other experts to chime in. Kiki?
All right. This is all about reskilling and upskilling. Obviously this is something that people have been getting a lot of advice about. What should they do to reskill or upskill? This specific question had to do with this person's looking at cyber security or data analysis, and they're coming from a finance background where they've worked in the financial sector. And the question was, is it worth your while or time? And how do you know? So how do you know if it's the right idea to go and look at reskilling or upskilling when that hasn't necessarily been your background?
That's a great question. Actually, I'm going to punt this one to Jo. Jo, this seems a little bit up your alley. Do you want to take a shot at this one?
Okay, well, one thing that I know for sure is that if anybody who wants to enter into anything IT related, obviously you have to do courses in it. But some people feel like if they get a certification in something, or they've taken a course in something, and they were taught how to code, for example, then they should be viable for jobs. And I will recommend to you that you should, while you are taking these courses, start working on your own projects and upload them into GitHub. GitHub is a repository where people, show what they've done, how they've done it, and it really showcases that you can do the work, or it shows at what level you're doing your work, or what kind of creativity you have brought to the process of doing that work. That will speak louder, on a resume. In fact, you put it right up there in your, phone number, email address, LinkedIn address, and then GitHub, the link to your GitHub. And I would say that has really helped people. I've actually hired people who I sent, a link to their GitHub to the hiring managers, who all checked out what the person had done and felt like they had enough raw talent to be able to bring in and mentor.
Fantastic, Jo. And just to clarify, it is correctly spelled GITHUB. Is that correct?
That is correct.
GITHUB.com. Great. Thank you, Jo. I figured you'd be the right person for that. Okay, Kiki, next question.
All right. So this question says, I didn't get to ask in the room, but have you seen a trend of employers, associations specifically, lowering salaries, sometimes drastically due to the losses of 2020? If so, what should be the strategy of responding to the salary expectation question if asked? Should it revert to more of a required number?
Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, the individual who posted this actually had asked me offline, so I knew that this question was coming. So look, not just in associations, but of course across the board, there are a lot of employers now that are clearly they're trying to save every dollar that they possibly can, and so they're going to be probably doing a little bit more lowballing, than they ever would. That said, rule of negotiation number one: you can always negotiate down, but you can't negotiate up. So what you want to make sure that you do is you still start with a reasonably high number, even if you have a sense, or even if the employer comes back at you with something that is lower, because you can always have a little bit more flexibility going down. If you start with your required number or your bottom line number, the chances of them giving you 1 penny above that is basically slim to none. So I recognize that this is a very different salary time right now. And it might very well be that the offer that they come back with is well beneath what you can afford, but that's okay. At least you can try to, push it up a little bit. But like I said, if you start with the floor, really hard to get back up. Okay, Kiki.
All right. So the next question I have is it ethical to put the job you want in your LinkedIn headline in order to get found when it isn't actually the job you've had? So we've all learned ways where, we can try to fool the search engines and that type of thing. How do you know when you've crossed that ethical boundary?
Well, I actually would not put this into the ethical category. I put this into the branding category. Actually, it's not an ethical thing per se. In other words, it's more about for example, it's not about saying, hey, I'm putting in director of marketing when you've never been a director of marketing. However, saying that you are an aspiring marketing professional, or even that you are a marketing leader or what have you, not the title, but the brand. It's not only ethical, you need to do that. In other words, if you're gunning for a new career opportunity, if you are trying to re-career into something else, you need to put those keywords in your LinkedIn headlines so that you can be found. Now, of course, you want to be kind of clear about that. You don't want to be changing that every day. You have to have a really thoughtful conversation, whether it's with a colleague, whether it's a career coach like me, whomever, but you really want to be thoughtful about what your new brand is going to be so that you can reposition that in LinkedIn in a healthy way. Hey, Vern, I know that you're kind of a master networker here. Is there any thoughts you have? I know it's not, LinkedIn's not exactly your thing, but I know that you're very much about kind of how do you position yourself for networking? Any thoughts you want to have about this? You're on mute, Vern.
Well, in relation to what you just said, Shira, I completely agree with everything you said. The challenge, if you're trying to re-career, is obviously convincing an employer that you really do have the skills and experience to do the job. That's the challenge.
That's right.
So, and if you are trying to re-career, what I would say from a networking standpoint is seek out people who are in that, the marketing profession, right? Seek out people from, even if people in your network aren't marketers, ask them, do you know somebody in your network who's a great marketing professional? Can you introduce me to them? How did they get into marketing? What are the key skills? What are the trends going forward? What advice would you have for me to, try to position myself as a marketer? What courses should I take? All of the questions to better prepare yourself for that challenge.
Yeah, and to that point as well, to the extent that you already have some of the skill sets that are required for the new career, you really want to make sure that that comes out both in your LinkedIn profile as well as in your resume. I'll give you a very quick example. I've shared this in the past. So years ago, I was, again, I'm a career coach, right? I write resumes and so forth. And so, and LinkedIn profiles. And so years ago, I was coaching an individual and he was an attorney. And let's just say he wanted to become a recovering attorney. Okay. He wanted to get out of it. And we were trying to figure out what does he want to be when he grew up, right? And so it turns out that he wanted to be a writer. Now, how do you turn an attorney into a writer? Well, this is what we did. We went through his background, his legal background, and we pulled out every example of the writing work that he'd done, which of course attorneys do a lot of writing. So first of all, we highlighted that all throughout his resume of all the different kinds of writing. Number two, in his LinkedIn profile, we recrafted the about section all about his aspiration to become a writer. What kind of writer, why he enjoys writing, superpowers, all of that stuff. He ended up landing as a journalist in a legal trade publication. Okay, so it is possible, but you've got to be very, very intentional. Repurpose the skills that you have into that other thing. There's a phrase that I have. It'll sound a little funny, but it'll make sense in a second. It's what I call the difference between your ing and your Okay, so your ing is the skill, the is the profession. So writing different than writer, event planning, event planner. So you want to become an event planner, but you've had some event planning skills. You pull out those skills, and then you can retitle yourself, kind of reposition as an aspiring event planner, and people will actually then see all of the substantive skills that you've had that bring you to that place. But then to Vern's point, there are other skills that you need that are more current. Yes, go ahead and take those courses. Get on LinkedIn. There are all kinds of low cost, no cost certificates that you could get now to show people that you have the new skill set. So great. Kiki, next question.
All right. How long should I wait to reach out after a potential employer has made initial contact?
Okay, so there's not sure exactly all the specifics there, but let's just say you've applied. The recruiter has said, hey, I'm interested in interviewing you. Well, normally, of course, they're going to say, I'm interested in interviewing you, and here are some dates. If they don't provide the dates right away, that obviously still means that they're still interested, but maybe something has happened, because life gets busy. I mean, it's fine to reach out within 2 days and say, hey, just wanted to make sure you got my email, and try to do that scheduling. But if it's a situation where the employer has not reached out, in other words, you've submitted your resume, I get that question more often than not. You've submitted, you haven't heard anything, okay? It's okay to touch base within, let's say, a week or so, just to make sure they received your application. You're not going to be a nudge, but you can reach out one time and just make sure that it's been received. Kiki, I'm not sure if there's anything else about that we can answer.
There's nothing more about that, but this next question is actually a question for the experts. They're challenging all of us, which I love that. That's fantastic. And it's taking the what has helped you the most in your job search for everyone to answer and saying, okay, experts, what have you seen that is the most helpful to job seekers?
The most helpful tips for job seekers?
Mhm.
Well, I think every one of us experts has a tip. Michelle, I haven't called on you yet. Is there a best practice, best tip you wanna share with job seekers here?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably, I'm sure you've heard it before, but when I talk to folks, I always recommend, if you're on LinkedIn or on a job search board, putting those alerts on so that you can so that way then it's working for you as much as you're looking to it. So that way you do get notifications of positions that are relevant to you right away, as opposed to later on in the day. I usually find the sooner you apply, I think the more likelihood, and if you have the skill sets, there's a higher likelihood of folks getting back to you.
Yeah, it is true. Thank you, Michelle, for that. As soon as a job comes open, most recruiters get flooded with resumes, right? And they're starting to screen. So by the time that job's been open a week or even two, oftentimes they've kind of been maxed out. So if you're applying after week 2, week 3, they could easily be already mostly through their process. So you want to apply as quickly as possible. I've got lots and lots of tips, but I'll just share one in particular, and this is the one that we've talked about so many times in this meeting, but it bears repeating every single meeting if we can, and that is get an internal champion to help you get into that next role. It is unbelievably important. These employers are receiving hundreds of resumes for every single role. Not only are they getting them pretty quickly, but it's very difficult for them to sort through them. A lot of times it goes into the cyberspace, into the cyber hole of their applicant tracking system. So when you can go to LinkedIn and you pop in the name of that organization in the upper left-hand corner, hit enter, sort by people, and then go ahead and try to find an internal champion, meaning you go and look for the name of the hiring manager, go look for the name of the HR person, the recruiter, somebody in that department. If that person is a second level to you, that means you have at least one first level connection. Tap that person. And if you have multiple people, you can tap multiple people to say, would you feel comfortable forwarding my resume and my cover letter to that employer to that hiring manager or that HR person for extra consideration? So you apply to the job first, then you go and you find your internal champion and have that person grease the skids for you and get your resume noticed, because otherwise it can certainly go into a cyber hole. That's one of my best.
Shira, do you mind if I chime in on that?
Certainly, Andrea.
So huge fan of cold outreach. I think it's super, super important. One thing that I also like to do is you take the LinkedIn route, but some people, especially if they're not job searching, might not be as active on LinkedIn as you want them to be. So they'll check in once a month, and that's just longer than you need. So I use a tool called rocketreach.co. I think it's rocketreach.co, and it's a free tool up to a certain amount. You can find people's emails. So if you put in their full name, you put in their job, like 95% accuracy is going to tell you their email. And then you send them a cold email and say something like LinkedIn, like put their name in there in the subject, just increases open rates by like 30%. So you say, Shira, LinkedIn follow-up, thoughts about marketing or thoughts about whatever it is they do. In the body, you make it really short and to the point. Hey, Shira, reach out on LinkedIn, love what you do, had some thoughts about how the marketing discipline can grow or how the data science group can evolve, or read this thing and wanted to talk to you for 15 minutes about it. They're definitely on email all the time. And so if you craft that cold email message right, it might work where LinkedIn is failing because maybe if they're just not on LinkedIn as often.
It's very true, Adriel. You're right. There are a lot of people you're going to reach out to that just aren't checking your LinkedIn very much. You're so right. And now what I will, so by the way, Adriel, could you put in the chat box the Rocket Reach so that people have that?
Yes.
That'd be great. And just for what it's worth, and so just to clarify to Adriel's point, when you are doing an outreach to your first level contact, okay, meaning that's the person who's going to hopefully get your resume noticed, because they're a first level contact, there's a 98% chance that you will be able to find your email through LinkedIn. So to Adriel's point, they may not be checking LinkedIn, they are going to check their email. So open up the profile of your first level contact, hit the contact info button, which is just underneath their name. And at the very least, their personal address is going to come up. Probably not their work address, but at least their personal, which most people do check. And I say it's a 98% chance. Occasionally, there are some people who are so private that they don't even put their email address. They don't even have their allow their first level contacts to access it. But most of the time, that's another way to do it. So I think what Adriel recommended is great. And then also you can do the contact info button. Okay. All right, Kiki, next question.
All right. And I just want to say, I mean, I've been corresponding directly with a few people who have asked me for information about their backgrounds. So just to let you know, if you have a question about it while we're on here and while I'm not asking questions, go ahead and ask, and I'll be happy to give you just a quick tip or two as we're going along.
By the way, when Kiki means about her background, I mean your Zoom background, like your lighting, your background, because
yeah,
that's your expertise.
What is in the frame? What is in the frame? Yes. So I love that you're asking this, by the way. It's what I do and it's what I love. Okay, so in this one's a question about resume bots, which this comes up a lot. So it seems especially relevant for federal jobs. This person writes, how do you craft a resume that actually gets seen? Which words, phrases from the job description should you mimic in your resume? And I just want to encourage people who are looking at the chat to look at the chat, because Corliss has some good resources. But for those who are listening to this later who don't have access to the chat, Shira, what's your response to that question?
Well, actually, I'm going to punt this to Corliss and to Joe, because they tend to do more on the better with the applicant tracking system. But I guess actually to the point is, you do need to be looking very specifically at the keywords that they use, because you might be saying, English has a lot of synonyms. You might have said the same thing and used one word. They've used a different word. It's the same thing, but you need to use their phraseology. So I'm going to have Corliss and then Joe answer the question.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So when an HR individual in the federal government is looking at your application, they're looking first at how you respond to what is called the self-assessment questionnaire. It's the multiple choice questionnaire. There's anywhere from 5 to maybe 100 or more questions. That is the first look at your application. If you don't answer at the highest level for as many as you can of those questions, you will not move forward. The second step, once you get through that first step, is a human being scanning your resume for keywords. And you can use one of the many different sites. TagCrowd is one of them that I like, and I put that in the chat box a little bit earlier, tagcrowd.com, to look for keywords in the announcement language and plug them into your resume. The third swipe at the apple, if you will, is a read of your federal resume. And it does not go through any kind of applicant tracking system or any kind of resume bot software or anything like that. It's a human being for all this, for the last 2 steps. The first step is how you respond to the self-assessment questionnaire. So you actually have a lot of control over how your resume is viewed. And what I would do is look very carefully at the announcement language, look at your resume, and make sure those two are very, that they align very, very closely.
Hugely important. Thank you, Corliss. Joe, any other thoughts on the?
No, I'm all about the tools, right? So jobscan.co, not .io or .com. It's jobscan.co. You can copy and paste your resume, copy and paste the job description, and it will tell you what keywords are in that job description that are missing from your resume. So I really love that one. If you want to go even deeper to ensure that your skill sets are matching what the job description said, that's resumeworded.com. And to answer the question why it's important, just last night, Amy Miller, a friend of mine, she has been senior recruiter for small companies like Microsoft and Google, and is currently recruiting rocket scientists for Amazon Lab. She actually put out a tweet that says, I've been reviewing applicants all afternoon. Yes, every single resume. Pro tip, if a role asks for 3 years of experience or more, I can't consider new grads for it. If a word is in both the job title and the basic qualifications, that word should be on your resume somewhere, because keywords are important to recruiters. And, there are there's really no bot in the ATS that's reading your actual resume, but for the recruiter who's mining their talent, their applicant tracking system for the roles, if you don't have the exact same words they use and you have a synonym when they're trying to find someone with those qualities, you're not even going to come up. So that is why you customize your resume for each and every role. You have to use the words they use. And so I can't doing that more highly, and make sure your resume and your LinkedIn profile are peppered with those very words.
Thank you, Jen. I'll give you a very quick recent example of a coaching client of mine who came to me and said, "Hey, Shira, I'm applying for this job. What do you think? Take a look at my resume." And this is such a simple and yet a really powerful switch that I had her make. So she's in the association world, and in association, it's all about all things membership. Okay. And so in this particular, she's a membership professional, and in membership world, you usually do recruitment, retention, engagement. Well, anyway, the role she was applying for was a director of membership recruitment and retention. And before she got to me, she put on her resume, membership sales professional. Sales and recruitment, technically the same thing, but it's different nomenclature. I said, you got to change it to membership recruitment and use the language that they use. It's that subtle and that simple, but you've got to really look at the way they phrased it, because that's what's going to catch their eye. Okay. So great. All right, Kiki, we're actually at 10 o'clock already. So let's go ahead. If you can want to scan down if there's any sort of, bigger question that we can address before we go into networking, that'd be great.
Well, it's actually just someone wanted to hear those websites again from Joe. And I think that everyone, if you didn't get a chance to write those down, that's probably helpful for all of us. So Joe, can you just share those websites one more time? Oh, she's on mute. You're on mute. Joe?
They're in the chat too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I guess when I responded to the person who wrote the question, I didn't realize it was a personal question. So I'm going to actually go to the websites and copy and paste it. So when you click on it, in there, it'll take you right to it. So I'll be right back.
Perfect. Okay. So before we go back into the breakout rooms for networking, just wanted to share with you guys all of our contact information in case you need to reach us. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. So I'll give you a second for that. And also want to share with you some free job support groups. Here they happen to be in the DC area, but because of COVID, right, everybody's Zooming. So these are the groups. And by the way, I should have taken this off in the green. I actually delivered that presentation last week. But anyway, these are some groups that you may want to check out. They're all terrific. And I also want to make sure that you guys know that I am now offering a free, very quick, but inspirational bi-weekly newsletter. It's called Higher Moments, Career Insights with a Higher Purpose. Feel free to write me if you'd like to be on that mailing list. As just a real quick word of inspiration. Speaking of inspiration, I always like to share something from the Bible. And so this is 1 Thessalonians. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up. And I know that we're all trying to do that here, especially during our very trying times. So just an encouragement for you to do that. So speed networking. All right. So we're going to go back into breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And this is where you want to share more about your career goals. What I call your lane, which is your profession, your community, which is the industry or sector or mission that you're connected to. Make sure to share any job leads with each other, kind of go around the room so that everybody has an opportunity to share. And like I said, you should have a facilitator in your room so to help with this. But if you don't have one of the experts, then make sure that somebody is at least kind of loosely keeping things going. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and pull out the breakout rooms again. And here we go. Okay, Vern, I'm giving you a room.
Good morning.
Good morning. Michelle, I'm giving you a room. Kiki, I'm giving you a room. Joe, you've got a room.
Yeah, I messed up.
Kelly, that's okay.
Yeah, this went really smooth this way.
Good. I'm so glad. All right, so here you go.
No more peanut gallery questions.
Okay, there you go. All right, you got a room.
Sorry, I data dumped on you last night.
It's okay. It's all good. All right, you should have a room now. Okay, everyone. Hope that was a good networking session. Just to wrap up here, and we're still going to keep things in chat mode. Kiki, thanks for still being with us. If anybody wants to put a last, quick comment in the chat box, a quick question or a thought, anything that came from your chat, from your networking rooms that other people could benefit from, maybe it's a tool, maybe it's a tip, a resource, a website, or what have you. Feel free to do that as well. Thanks, Kiki, for putting in our Power Networking spreadsheet. So if there's anything else that people want to share, we are here to quickly address it. Oh, Career Confidence, really fantastic organization. They do free job seeker groups every single Saturday morning. So does the Career Network Ministry on Tuesday evening, 40 plus on Monday mornings. So those are terrific. Right. Anything else in there, Kiki, that we should be aware of?
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
Is that 40 plus? Is that a charge to do
No
that?
charge, no charge. So 40 plus, there's no charge for their Monday morning meetings. Now they do have a paid, I forget what they call it. It's like a boot camp kind of a thing for a number of weeks. I think it's for $750. That's if you want to have a deep dive, kind of a course. But otherwise, their Monday morning meetings are completely free.
And I just threw jobseer.ai in there. It's a fascinating tool for job seekers wherein you can put in, your resume and, the titles that you're looking for, and it will look for jobs for you on LinkedIn and then tell you what percentage of a chance that you have of being a match, which really helps to, whittle down to, if I'm only going to be a 47% match to that, I may only want to apply for anything 75% and over, but it's a really fascinating tool and it might just help save time for you.
That's great. And by the way, speaking of which, so when you're trying to figure out if you are a good match for that role, there are two sections on a job posting that you want to pay extra special attention to. Number one, the responsibility section. Number two, the qualifications section, and specifically the first three bullets. Okay, not to say bullets 4 and 5 aren't important, but the first three are extremely important. What are they specifically asking of you in the responsibilities in the first three bullets and in the qualifications? When they say X skill is required, LMNOP industry is required, or even if they say preferred, these days preferred usually means required. That doesn't mean you can't apply, but you really have to manage your expectations because people are looking for that unicorn candidate and they're going to give much stronger preference and first consideration to people who check all of those boxes. So just be careful in how much time you invest in applying for things that really you're not that great of a match for. Somebody asked real quickly, do you have to be at least 40 years old to go to 40 plus? No, that was started. The organization was started, I think, like 60 plus years ago, at the time when, and it is still today, people over the age of 40 are considered a protected class. Now, it really doesn't feel that way anymore, but they are open to everyone. They just wanted to make sure that they were targeting an older audience. And if you just go to 40 plus, let's see, I think it's 40 plus DC. If you just Google that, you'll come up very quickly with the link. Okay, so with that, anything else, Kiki, here that we can quickly address?
I just put this in the chat really quickly, and I just want to give kudos to Madeline, who, if everybody wants to look over at Madeline Square, her background is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. So the mixture of blues, the design is great. So Madeline, you get an A+ today. You can go into your Friday knowing that you get your gold star.
Nice. Thanks, Kiki, for shouting out. All right, everyone. We'll have a blessed day. We look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure to share our Hire Moment Mastermind with your colleagues and let us know if we can help. See you soon.
Thank you. Awesome session.
Terrific.